Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric. This being a show where I talk about crime dramas that I like. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the season finale of Elementary. A very interesting and really awesome season finale. I really liked it. I love how at the beginning we dealt with that bomb situation just like that. I was expecting, Captain Gregson, Bell, as well as, bomb squad gets brought in. But no, that was dealt with in I think it was 2 minutes, right before the opening title card and first commercial. And it was just like, wow, that was dealt with instantly. Because I love the fact is Joan's standing there holding her breath. And he's like, why are you holding your breath? She's like, I'm sorry, I'm not handling the situation the way you are. There's a bomb right there. She's like, shouldn't we call in a bomb squad or anything? He's like, no, we can't let the person that set this up know that we're here. Grabs the bomb, in the middle of a sentence, he's talking to her, grabs the bomb and snatches it up. And Joan's like, wait, didn't you have to disconnect some wires or something? She's like, yes, I know you're basing that on those movies. This is based on your knowledge of movies. All the movies that you say are great, which are in actuality or not. It's basically saying it doesn't work like that in real life. It's like, oh, movies let me down in that regard, because I was expecting, I like that they dash your expectations. He's like, okay, someone's got to come cut some wires, or he's gonna have to figure out what wires to cut. It's like, nope, he just snatched the bomb off and that was it. It's like, okay, because essentially it's like, if someone wanted to set that up, I guess the point you're trying to make is they wouldn't make it so it's like, oh, you can disarm it by simply it's not, they're making something to explode. They're not trying to make some impressive device. It's simply meant to explode. You disconnect it and done. You don't have to worry about this intricate wiring system. It's like, no, they set up a bomb for it to explode, and that was its main purpose. So, it was easy to disarm like that. I did like the twist when we found out that, it wasn't Victor who did it. Because, Sherlock brought up a good point. Why would Victor go after them? I mean, granted, they were pushing into his business and stuff like that. But the thing is, they're under Moriarty's protection. And the thing is, Victor himself wouldn't do that, because if he did, he'd basically have to suffer Jamie's wrath. That she found out that he had something to do with Joan or Sherlock dying. That basically she would... probably hired someone to kill him, basically. It's kind of interesting to think about that she would crush him, even though, they have their past and they have their daughter, but she'd probably still kill him because she cares so much for Sherlock and Joan, so. But it ends up being that it's like, oh, someone else set the whole situation up to basically frame Victor because they want him out of the organization. Even had that, scene between Sherlock and his dad, because essentially his dad is basically ended up tracking down the actual bomber, the person who set it up, and basically there was a conversation between Sherlock and his dad, and his dad's basically like, I'm gonna give up on vengeance and I'll supply you with whatever help I can, which I'm like, Sherlock, I was hesitant. I was like, really? The woman that you love so much, which and that's always a sad thing to hear, how much he cared and loved for Sabine. It's always sad. Sherlock doesn't bring it up. He doesn't say anything about it, but you already know how he feels about it, because it's like, you're talking about this woman, how much he loved her, but I've never heard you talk about mom like that, So it's kind of half sweet, because it's like, oh, he cares so much for her, he's going out for vengeance, but it's like, you never really show this much interest and care for Sherlock's mom. I mean, truth be told, is what do we know? Granted, we do only get Sherlock's perspective on things, but even then, the way Moreland acts and the way he does things, it kind of makes you think yeah, Sherlock's not too hard. Like I said, the whole situation with telling Sherlock about his mom, being an addict, he said that to hurt Sherlock. He wasn't doing it to just be he said it with the direct purpose of hurting Sherlock, because he was tired of Sherlock blaming him for everything. He was basically like, no, your mom's an addict. You pretty much got that from her, stuff like that. So, he isn't, the good guy he tries to be, but he does legitimately care for his son. You see that in this episode. It's like, even though they have such a strenuous relationship, he does everything to make sure that his son survives. I mean, he even because at the end of the episode, they even have, in the episode, they have it set it up so Moreland's like, okay, I'm going to go and turn myself over to Victor, because, they had that whole plan of trying to frame him, which I thought was pretty genius, but ended up trying to frame him. But but he was basically the whole truce thing came up again, because Victor had brought that up last episode, but Sherlock was like, there's no way my dad's going to take it. Obviously, this was part of a plan just to get Victor's fingerprints for to put on a murder weapon, yada yada yada. But he would only settle if it was for the purpose of killing Moreland was the only way he was going to let bygones be bygones. Because essentially, to him, his little battle with Moreland has caused more problems than good. Like, essentially, he thought dealing with Moreland would just be kind of a one-off problem, but it ended up turning into a much serious thing because Moreland started turning over stones, kind of diving deeper into their business, kind of bringing their stuff to light, and the other members of the organization didn't like that. So Moreland, to show, strength, to prove that it's like, no, he's got this whole situation under control. He needed Moreland dead so that he could have the rest of the organization to back him, because there were some members of the organization who were just like, no, you're too much of a wild card. Specifically, the lady, I can't remember her name, but she's the one who set up the bomb in the first place, who wanted to take Victor out. Her words, I really liked her description. She says, like, Victor is a hammer. What we need is a scalpel. He's just kind of going around doing things his way, not realizing that there needs to be some subtlety to what they do. And did you finally, to me, one of the best parts of the episode is finally finding out why Victor went after Moreland in the first place. It's because the organization chose him. Like, Victor was amongst like 7 other people, possible candidates to take over the organization after Moriarty got locked up, but the lady as well as some other members in the organization weren't all that keen about Victor taking over. They're like, let's get an outsider, and they saw the way Moreland handled things, and they wanted Moreland to take. I was just like, oh my god, they wanted you to take over the organization. It's like, that's amazing, because part of my brain was like, the way she was talking, I was like, what if actually I didn't really. There was a part of my brain hoping it's like, what if they actually end up saying it was Sherlock they wanted this entire time? But I kind of figured that wasn't the case. But then when Sherlock was like, it was you, they wanted you to lead the organization, I was like, oh my god, that's amazing. The reason Victor went after him was because he was getting rid of the competition, but he failed. But he knew that Moreland would be so wrapped up in his grief over Sabine dying that he took that opportunity to be like, yeah, the others want Moreland as the leader, but it's like, no, he's kind of in a situation, he's dealing with his death love, so he's not in a position to lead his group, but I'm here, I am. That's so fascinating. That was just amazing to me. And Sherlock kind of brings it up later on in the episode, because Joan brought it up. She's like, what do you think, if the situation came about it, would your dad have said yes if they had, come to him and be like, oh, leave the cabal or whatever? And it's like, he says no, because there's a difference between his dad and his organization. His dad, yes, he's killed some people because it's been along the path he's going, because there's certain business ventures, people will die. Yes, granted, he's not the best person, but he doesn't do what the organization does, because the organization literally sets out to basically kill people. It goes out of its way to kill people. It chases death. Moreland's, death is kind of like a part of the path that it may or may not be a part of the path that Moreland goes, because he doesn't set out killing people, but he'll kill someone if he needs to. If it's like part of a situation and he needs to kill someone, he won't shy away from it, but he doesn't actively seek death like the organization does. And he even brings it up his dad later. He's like, you would have been a failure as a leader of the organization. Because his dad brought up the fact that he was for the longest time blamed himself. Because, granted, last episode he blamed Sherlock, but truth be told he's always blamed himself, because he figured his job, like maybe he screwed over someone else, someone he's had past business with. It's like something associated with what he does that got Sabine killed. He said like he couldn't sleep, he spent, long periods of time just pondering over that. It wouldn't leave his mind. And Sherlock kind of confides, like, yeah, it is because of you. I mean, because his dad didn't lead the business he wasn't in the work he does, he would have never got the Cabal's attention, nor would Victor have come after him in the first place. If he had never got associated with the business he did, the Cabal wouldn't have looked to him as a potential candidate, and Victor wouldn't have come after him trying to get rid of the competition. So it is his fault, but he's like, you would have been a failure as a head of the organization because you're not an evil mastermind, which in Sherlock's, own way, that was a compliment in his own way, because it's interesting how he always paints his father as a monster, and he knows his dad does some occasionally monstrous things, but I mean, even we kind of see in it is that he's not as big as a monster as we thought he was, because like I said, the whole situation was that last episode we ended up, the episode before last, where we ended up finding out about that guy that was spying on Moreland, that it made it seem like, okay, Moreland's totally put the hit out on him, but it was like, no, it wasn't him. So he's not the monster. Like I said, he does some bad things, but he's not the monster you kind of make him out to be. But how that situation ended, I came into this season finale thinking it was going to go one way. Totally didn't go that way. Like, I would tell you what my thing was. I was thinking it was going to basically end with Sherlock, because Sherlock said that he was going to frame him for a crime. I thought, this is when I was watching the episode. Beforehand, I thought like somehow Sherlock was basically going to have to fake his death so that the organization wouldn't come after him. I know like it's basically distance himself from Joan so that the organization wouldn't come after him. And I kind of got that in my head. But then, when the episode was going on, he was like framing him for something. I was like, okay, so you're going to frame him for your murder. You're going to set up this whole elaborate situation, fake your death, and then, Victor gets blamed for it or something. I don't know. That's just how I was thinking. On some regard, it does happen to that slight extent because we have Moreland there. Like, basically, you have Moreland and Victor meeting up, which ended with Victor dying. I was like, I did not know how that situation was going when, like, the FBI is there and they're just leading Joan and Sherlock to the body that they found at the place. I was like, oh God, it's going to turn out, oh man, his dad's dead. I was like, in my mind, I was like, okay, even if it's his dad's body, it's his dad set up some situation to fake his death. But it's Victor on the floor. I was like, oh, he actually is dead. Essentially, Moreland took the lady's offer and basically killed Victor, and he'll take the position as head of the cabal, doing what she wants. And Sherlock's going, why would you do that? He's like, for two reasons. One, he said he won't let anything happen to his son. So like I said, like, even with their relationship being as kind of toxic as it is, he still loves Sherlock and he won't let anything bad happen to him or Joan. And then, he's basically saying that he's going to, as the head of the cabal, though, he can now dismantle it from the inside. It's going to take some time, but it's better to do it from the end. Because, like, we ended up finding out in this episode just how vast the cabal's reach is, because literally the lady had like a board of all the countries in the world, well, all these different countries, and it said about, like, because Joan pointed out, like, they were saying literally half of the countries out there in the world have the cabal. The cabal has like some reach, whether it's like whether some high-ranking official, maybe it's like one or two officials here and there, or maybe it's like a whole bunch of people sprinkled throughout a country, but they are there influencing things, and it's just like you can't take down it. Like, even with Moreland's resources as they are, it's like even he would have trouble taking down an organization that widespread, that deep into so many different countries. It'd be nearly impossible to take down something like that. Because that was the whole point. Because Sherlock wanted to start this with Victor, but he wanted, to cut off the head. But this time, take the whole body down too, not just the head, because he did that with Moriarty, and that led to Victor taking over the organization. So. But his dad did leave him with some advice. He was like, basically walk away from Joan, essentially. Because he's saying, like, men, they end up hurting the people they love the most, Because for him, Sabine ended up dying because of, her getting close to him. And it's basically kind of, bring up the comparison of his situation with Sherlock and Irene. That basically, because he'd heard from the lady about the whole Irene situation, and basically saying that he has to be careful because who's the person he cares about the most, and that's being Joan. Which I will note in the back of my mind, I'm like, but what about your current girlfriend? We haven't seen her for a couple episodes, but you care about her too. Like, I kind of love how she wasn't regarded in this situation, but obviously, him and Joan have that relationship. They've had it for a couple years. She is like his closest friend and confidant. Like, she's his partner too, so she's a friend, family, she's so many things to Sherlock. She's a rock. She helps keep him grounded. She helps, she's obviously one of multiple people who brings stability to his life, but she's like the biggest influence, obviously. And he's basically like, if you care about her, just walk away from her. And he kind of does that. He's like, okay, here's my dad's brownstone. I mean, one of my dad's properties. He's kind of sold the others and given them away to charity, but he's left some of them. And this particular one he left to me. He's like, basically, and she's like, oh, we're moving in here. He's like, not me. You Ari, if you want to. And basically, like, so you're listening to the crap your dad says. She's like, basically, like, your dad wants to be alone. That's his business, but you're not your dad. You don't listen to what he said, because like, you and your dad are completely different people. Like, your dad, like, Sabine essentially, she didn't say this, but essentially Sabine died because of the way of life that Moreland lives. And Sherlock is a man of justice. He helps people and he catches criminals. I mean, granted, you could argue that might get them into trouble, something that that has led to occasions where Joan has already been in trouble, but it's like, the whole Cabal situation is kind of dealt with because Moreland has said, like, with his influence, he's saying basically he promises to remove them from New York, so Sherlock and Joan won't have to fear any retaliation from anyone else within the Cabal, anyone that might have supported Victor. And even those who didn't support Victor probably would still come after them anyway, because just out of principle, like, you took out our leader, we have to come after you. I mean, the only reason why they never did originally was because Moriarty put them under her protection. So that was the only reason why. Which is like, that shows you just how amazing Moriarty is. And it makes you wonder, just who does she have to take down to like how do you get in a position to take over an organization like that? Especially being an artist, how do you get in that position? Especially like with wolves always nipping at your heels trying to take the position from you. It's like, the fact of the matter is no one ever took it from her. The only reason why it was ever taken from her was because she got locked up. But other than that, she had led that organization, kind of made the organization prosper. So it's like, makes you wonder, was there anyone who ever came after her? Like, was there kind of like a Victor that came, like, were there other people always eyeballing her spot? I mean, I guess, like, you could argue maybe Victor was, and he took that opportunity as a chance to rise up within the organization. Maybe, maybe not. I am a little sad to hear, to know that Victor is dead. I mean, I guess it would have been interesting to see where things proceed, with him. It was very interesting that we actually physically saw him teaching. It's weird. It's like, you're part of this deadly organization that kills people, and you're up here teaching like it's nothing. It's like, that was weird. I also do feel a little bad for their daughter, because we didn't really see that element neither. I mean, I guess he's not in her life. Maybe she's staying with some relatives, maybe some of his relatives or Moriarty's, which is kind of sad, but it's like, her mom's locked up and her dad's dead. It's kind of an issue that was kind of glossed over. I mean, I guess because she's not a focal point in the episode, she was brought up because Joan was like, you're not thinking about kidnapping her or something, and Sherlock was like, it's not something he had to think long about. It's like, if it meant taking down Victor, he was kind of willing to do anything. I guess the idea was floated, like, it was kind of thrown out there, but it was never really acted upon. So, but I do like that, the fact is, kind of going back, you have Joan kind of fighting for you. And it's just like, basically, you're not your dad, you're a different person. And it's just like, Joan's not about to, like, leave Sherlock's side. Like I said, this relationship has become just important to her as it is to him, She thinks of him as, like, a close friend, too. So, and when you actually break it down, I mean, it's something you've seen kind of periodically throughout the series. It's like, Sherlock's kind of the closest friend she has, because even her old friends, which kind of dives back into that older life, but it's like most of her time is spent with Sherlock, and that's kind of the person she confides in about everything. It's like, because outside of that, no one in her family, I mean, her association of friends really knows her the way Sherlock kind of does. Like, she's not necessarily the same person she was when she was originally, like, Sherlock's sober companion back in season 1. She's like a different person. She's grown. She's become a detective now. So it's like, I mean, in a regards of being a consultant, she's a detective. She's got a very keen sense of investigation. So it was nice seeing that relationship, that she's not willing to give up on it, and she's like, don't you give up on it either, essentially. So I really like this season finale. It's really good. Like I said, things didn't go down the way I was expecting it. I did like, like all those discoveries we found out. The fact is, that's obviously going to come back in some shape or form, Moreland being a part of the organization. I mean, granted, he's leaving New York, so I don't know if the show is being brought up back for another season. I hope it does. I mean, I kind of don't see why, because I think the show gets pretty good reviews and ratings. I assume, I'm not 100% sure, but I would just assume so. But I do hope it is coming back for another season. I would love to see, like, because, Minecraft is kind of like, he kind of has a government position, so it'd be very interesting if him and his dad ended up crossing paths. It's like him being the head of this new organization versus everything, Minecraft working with the government and stuff like that. It does make you wonder, like, how much of Moreland, like, is Moreland going to assimilate into the organization? Because it's like, is he going to take his original business and add it onto the Cabal? Like, is that all going to become one, or is he going to leave all? I feel like he wouldn't leave all his ventures behind, because it's just like they've gotten him this far and they're a part of his life. So it's like, I don't think he's going to be so quick as to be like, okay, I'm I'm leaving all this behind because I'm part of the cabal. I feel like he's going to keep all his networks and connections and everything he's built up to now, his quote unquote kingdom, I guess. It'd just be very interesting to see where everything goes. Like, I mean, it's like, what are they going to, like, like I said, if it does get renewed for another season, like, what are they going to go up against next season? Like, I feel like maybe this be an opportunity to kind of, because we learned so much about Sherlock's mom, we got an opportunity to learn more about his dad. I would love to see more investigation, like leading more into more about Sherlock's family. Like, we get to see more of them. We've seen, like, in regards of his mother, but other parts of his family, but definitely more so his mother. I'd like to learn more about her, kind of see, like, flashbacks. Maybe, like, Sherlock ends up having to relive a bit of his childhood or something like that. Maybe there's stuff that's connected to his mom that comes up maybe next season or something. That'd be pretty cool, like, to add that kind of personal connection to it. Because it's like, that's one thing this show does well, is it makes... not everything is necessarily widespread. Like, obviously, you have a cabal situation like this. It is a very vast situation, but when it comes down to it, it is a very personal thing. Like the old Victor situation, that was personal. I mean, because it was him, like, trying to aim for power. That's what how this whole situation started. You have last season with that drug dealer who kidnapped, is it Alfredo? Yeah, like him kidnapping Alfredo, that made that whole situation at the end of the season personal for Sherlock. The whole Moriarty situation, it does personal very well, and I'd like to see, like, how, what kind of personal stuff we'll get into next season. So, but that's really all I want to talk about in this episode. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, love life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.